As a 15-year-old, every time that she came home, she had to face her worst nightmare. Every day, she ran away from this man, following her through the stairs. One day, her feet couldn't go fast enough, and this man, who was at least 5 years older than her, made her heart pieces. He raped her and forced her to consume drugs with him. Although this day was a horrible mark to her memory, everything worsened when she found out that she was pregnant from the man who terrified her day by day. This problem was definitely not easy to cope with, and she didn't experience enough confidence to reveal it to her parents, so she decided to have an abortion. Today, she is a person who has had to deal with the loss of her child and all the psychological repercussion that the sexual abuse left her with. I was not only hurt when I heard this story and realized for a moment that these kinds of situations are still happening in the 21st century, but I was also heartbroken to know that the protagonist of this hideous event was a very close friend of mine. Yet the real question relies on what is happening to the abuser now. For centuries, there has been historical evidence showing that sexual harassment has been a pervading problem in almost any society on earth. Unfortunately, there is also historical evidence pointing to the fact that such objectionable behavior has been openly tolerated and purposely overlooked. For instance, 2015, a document made by the National Institute of Forensic Medicine and Forensic Sciences states the same year 47,249 of domestic violence cases were reported in Colombia, being women the main victims with an 86.66% of the cases in the country. It is imperative to highlight that our society has developed structures which have encouraged gender issues, and this study is able to demonstrate that the problem is prevalent in our country. In Colombia, the abuse towards women prevails for three main reasons: the development of chauvinist religions, the ways in which the Colombian society confronts the matter, and at last, the economical dependence that exists in abusive relationships. First of all, in many civilizations, religion has triggered the belief that men have had greater power, control, and status than women. It is an accepted fact that men have some privileges and rights that women don't possess. El Tiempo, one of Colombia's main newspapers, mentions how 75% of our population is Catholic, which makes it predominant to mention how the development of patriarchal religions in Colombia have influenced the elevated levels of abuse against women. A psychologist from TEDxColegioBolivar, Liliana Poveda, mentions how a possible Judeo-Christian religion has encouraged the spread of situations against the feminine gender. These types of religions, their sacred writings, and the diverse roles proposed through them have influenced in role delegation based upon which gender each person belongs to. Consequently, women have been connected with educational roles that are still practiced in our culture and that stimulate the development of children, assuming that such roles belong to women. In the second place, another of the main issues with how this situation is seen is how violence towards women is addressed. Jackson Katz, an anti-sexism educator, provides a new proposal which causes a big paradigm shift regarding this matter. Women are always seen as the main instigator in these situations, and men are left behind when talking about gender issues. He mentions how addressing to violence against women as women's issues causes men's neural pathways to have the opportunity to take their attention off their misconduct and help them detach themselves from the problem. Culturally speaking, Colombians tend to blame women who have been harassed or raped, arguing that they had it coming. Proof that Colombia still has a chauvinist society is the fact that all kinds of justifications are provided to excuse the sexually improper behavior that they sometimes have. A painful reminder of that social handicap is Rosalvira Celi's murder and rape in Bogotá on the 24th of May of 2012. The cruelty of her victimizer was such that a whole country was shocked. It was hard to believe that a fellow countryman could be so heartless and twisted-minded. However, the most shocking aspect of this crime was the legal reply issued by the secretary of the city's government, according to which Rosalvira Celi was the only responsible for what happened that night in a park. Summarizing their words, she shouldn't have gone drinking with a pair of lowlifes, and she shouldn't have gone to an isolated place with a man who eventually raped, stabbed, and impaled her. In short, she was guilty of her own murder due to all the unnecessary risks she took. Moreover, Katz also mentions how our cognitive structures tend to lead us to victim blaming, questioning why women brought this upon themselves. The real questions that we should be asking now are, why do men keep raping women? How are institutions encouraging and overlooking this? While the pending answers arrive, it's crucial to take action and challenge both our inner responses and society's indifference. Men and women should change their minds, frames, and unite to take a stand to protect women and their rights. Since this requires solid moral values, morally strong leadership training should be in office so that individuals will not be afraid to stand up for their ideals. That kind of leadership can only be nurtured since childhood through educational programs that encourage tolerance, inclusion, and open-mindedness, that empower women to face different kinds of challenges with courage and dignity. Needless to say, women usually spend their lifetimes dealing with several kinds of difficulties. One of the scariest challenges that Colombian women face when ending a sexually abusive relationship is taking control of their own finances. It's so much so that it has been established that one of the main reasons why women prefer to stay in a violent relationship rather than leaving and suing their abusive partner is because they lack the necessary self-confidence to deal with the economical issues. They feel it's safer to keep quiet and pretend everything's all right in their lives. There is a clear cause for this situation. Abusive partners seldom allow their victims to have access to their money and even the money that they have earned by themselves. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Forbes magazine, a significant proportion of women who return to their relationship attribute their inability to deal with their finances as a major contributing factor, which is often enhanced by the fact that the abuser often has all the economic and social standing and complete control over the family's finances. In other words, women tend to freak out when they no longer feel that backup from their past relationship. They don't have access to their money or aren't allowed to work and earn their own money, so it makes it challenging to leave their relationship. People may argue that many women have married wealthy men just because of a financial motivation. However, what actually happens is that most of those women earn less than men and therefore are financially dependent. This has led to the labeling of many people as gold diggers, when in fact they are just insecure individuals that have been unable to assertively earn and manage their own money. This is why many Colombian women are frequently classified as gold diggers, despite their extreme devotion to their work. This is especially true for high and medium-class women who have married affluent men. According to El Tiempo, although Colombian women tend to work longer hours, have a greater participation in the labor market, and even experience more years of academic formation, they earn on average, according to the National Administrative Department of Statistics, DANE, 20.2% less than men, even if they are performing similar professions. In Colombia, when there is an exception to the rule, there isn't a right implementation of laws which cover women who are the heads of their family, making it a challenge for such families to prosper in our societies. With that in mind, people are ready to judge and accuse many low-income women who manage to marry well. Many of those who accuse them often believe that since those women had a hidden agenda when they married their husbands, they must quietly tolerate the sexual abuse that they are receiving. Most of those abused women often hesitate to put an end to their toxic marriages because they fear that their decision could be used to prove those unfounded accusations right. Because of that, many of those women would rather suffer in silence and abstain from any action towards their sexually aggressive partners because they fear that they would be called gold diggers. They fear society would not understand them if they just leave them because they are expected to endure the mistreatment that they get. On the other hand, women who are from a lower social class have more practical fears because they don't actually care about society calling them gold diggers. What they really care about is having the necessary means to support themselves and their families. Overall, there are many different factors in Colombia that make the magnitude of gender issues increase. One of those factors is the alarmingly acute economic gender inequality there is in our society. This is something clearly deduced from what the statistics about women and men's salaries show. Another factor of the religious beliefs that shape the way many women have been raised for centuries. The Catholic Church has usually expected women to be submissive and dependent from their husbands. Finally, verbally abusive language is commonly used in our country to treat women of all ages. Unfortunately, this is something accepted and encouraged in our country, and that affects the self-esteem of thousands of Colombian women. It is time to put an end to this situation. We all have something to say and something to do. to stop all kinds of physical and emotional abuse on women. We can all create a society in which women are perceived as much more than just physical beauty. Our society will change if we acknowledge every woman's intelligence, power, and sensibility. And yes, we can even honor our own flaws, which makes us, at the end of the day, as indispensable as men are. Thank you.